A couple days ago, I posted a video on Instagram and it kind of blew up. It was me essentially destroying in quotation marks, my carbon rims. If you haven't seen the video, I'll play it for you here shortly. But basically, I stated that this destroyed the carbon rims. Now, no, it did not destroy the carbon rims, but in a sense, it could have. Now, by no means am I a professional on carbon and carbon structure, but hear me out. So there are 5 main things that classify carbon as destroyed. Some of that includes structural failure, excessive deformation, chemical damage, thermal damage, or impact damage. Now in this video, my carbon rim undergoes an impact damage, but it's on a very tiny spot and it really just cracked the top surface layer. Now, what determines a structural failure of carbon? This occurs when the carbon fiber material experiences fractures, cracks, delamination, which will compromise its strength and integrity. Now, on a bicycle rim, fractures and cracks can really just be caused from excessive use, like probably 20,000 miles, you may have to replace your carbon rim. But delamination is pretty much when the carbon fibers separate apart on the, I think, vertical horizontal axis. It's kind of weird how you see it, but essentially carbon is layered on top of one of another and then resin's put on top of it. And then they just separate either because they're squished a lot or they were not laminated correctly in the first place. And that also has a play in excessive deformation. It's if a structure deforms beyond designed limits or undergoes permanent damage, it could be considered destroyed. Now, throughout my years of schooling, I took 1 or 2 engineering classes, and one thing you learn is called plastic deformation. Plastic deformation happens to every material. Let's envision a string, for example. You can squeeze or stretch a spring a certain amount, and it'll go back to its original shape. Now, once a spring experiences plastic deformation, you pretty much pull the spring too far apart, and it just stays there. It doesn't like to go back to its original compression state. It just stays stretched apart. That's essentially what happens once the carbon gets destroyed through a process such as excessive deformation. Now, if you took any type of chemistry course throughout your years in schooling, chemical damage is a big factor on how carbon can actually get destroyed as well. Since carbon is essentially made with carbon threads and then resin, some type of resin on it, this resin is very reactive and it can be destroyed with stuff such as paint thinner and WD-40. Pretty much anything that has some type of corrosive material to it. That's why it's very, very weird to clean carbon. You have to be very careful with cleaning carbon. This also plays into the heat factor of how you could damage carbon, but yeah. Now let's talk about thermal damage. Thermal damage is pretty much what it sounds like. I actually thermally damaged my carbon rims. Again, carbon is pretty much made with some type of resin that holds everything together. So if you heat up this resin, it'll most likely fail. It'll bubble, it'll delaminate a bit, and then boom, crack, gone, 100% gone. Pretty much how it happens with thermal. And lastly, but the most common, is impact damage. Impact damage really plays into a lot of the things discussed previously. Structural failure, excessive deformation. Both of those are really the 2 main ones that all these other categories fall under. Now, if you're wondering how impact damage can destroy your carbon, if you do have carbon rims, I recommend you try getting on your bike and just bunny hopping it a couple 100 times, especially if you are on a road bike. And that'll show exactly what impact damage does. It destroys shit because you put too much weight, or you really extended the limits of what's not supposed to happen on your carbon rims. But yeah, those are the overarching 5 main categories. But let me go into, was my carbon rim actually destroyed? Luckily, no, it was not. I believe the clear coat layer got nicked off. That's what happened. That's why you see that little scab there. But overall, no. I rode it a couple 100 miles after this, and it's still holding up. I beat the shit out of these rims. They have multiple scars on them. They're totally okay. But a few people did point out in the comment section one very cool thing. You can fix carbon with super glue. I mean, it makes sense. Carbon is pretty much made out of resin and carbon fibers. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense why super glue would work. So I guess we'll have to wait for another video to see how that plays out. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Leave a comment down below. Like the video, subscribe if you watched all the way through, and have a great rest of your day.